I heard a story the other day about Dr. Watson and Sherlock Holmes. Now, these two super sleuths one weekend decided to go camping. And that week they packed everything that they would need. Their telescope and their tent and their pans and their pots and some other things for observational skills that they enjoyed doing, especially Dr. Watson. So later that weekend as they were camping, it was getting late in the day and they'd had a little too much liquid refreshment, probably Mountain Dew or something really caffeinated they were a little buzzed from caffeine, of course, and they were half asleep as well. So Sherlock Holmes wakes up and looks over at Dr. Watson and says, "Watson, hey Watson, get up, look up. What do you see, Watson?" "Well, I see stars and millions upon millions of galaxies. There's the Milky Way, and over here we have the Big Dipper. And why, Sherlock? What do you see?" Sherlock looks at him and replies, "Watson, you idiot! Somebody has stolen our tent!" Honestly, in life we can get so caught up at trying to find all these big intrinsic answers for simple things, and we miss the point. This is episode number 4 of Sunday Super Shorts. And I thank you for joining me today. We're going to jump right into today's message. I've done it before. If you've seen me live, you probably heard the Rise Up Trilogy. And it comes down to 3 different points that I believe we as Christians should implement in our lives to live a risen life. Point number 1, we need to rise up. Rise up. Before we became a Christian, we were in a state of, unbelief. We were separated from God. So as an unbeliever, we had to come to a point where we rose up and said yes personally to what Jesus did on the cross and that free gift of salvation. If you have not accepted or got to the point where you have rose up and accepted what Christ did on the cross for you, paying your sin debt in full, then I encourage you to do that today. All it takes isn't even a prayer necessarily. What it takes is you believing with all your heart. You can verbalize it, you can say it out loud to yourself, but it takes belief of you stepping back and rising up and saying yes to what God did for you on the cross. Point number 1 comes in twofold. So the first one was rising up as an unbeliever. We need to come to a point in our life where we rise up to salvation. Or as Christians, and myself looking back years ago, I was a believer, but I had not given my whole life to rising up out of sin. And when I say that, I mean like Paul puts it, we need to lay aside the weights and the things that so doth easily beset us as Christians. Which essentially means, in today's modern language, we need to let go of those sins and those things that are holding us down or have tried to easily pull us down all through our life. Whether it be an addiction to pornography, an addiction or something of that nature to alcohol, or getting angry or lusting or things of that nature, we need to lay aside those weights because Christ calls us to live a risen life. And to live a risen life, we need to constantly fight sin. When you become a Christian, it is not a guarantee that everything will be easy and you're going to be floating on clouds all the way until you get to heaven. That is not the guarantee. It is a fight. But let me tell you this, and I've said this so many times, it is always worth it. The fight is always worth it. So that's point number 1 that comes in twofold. We need to rise up to salvation, and I encourage you to do so if you have not yet today. Or we need to rise up out of sin as believers. Of course we're not perfect, but God calls us to better and to strive for that higher plane. Point number 2, we need to rise away. Now, kind of caveating off of point number 1, rising away essentially is the action of us putting distance between things that messed us up in the past, things that will mess us up, things that want to continually come at us in life. Put some distance between us and them. I heard a story about an individual who was a waiter at a restaurant. He waited for this table of a couple, and they had a friend. She was very attractive, and come to find out, she had just recently gone through a divorce. Anyway, this man had just found the woman that he believes God would send him to marry. For lack of a better words, his God-sent woman. And he was getting ready to propose to her back at home. And he comes and waits for these people and gets their order out and stuff. And the lady who had just gone through a divorce was kind of hitting on him the whole time, and he kind of liked that. It made him feel good about himself because she kept, snickering and all this other stuff that girls do when they're hitting on guys. Anyway, and at the end of the meal, she gives him her number and whispers, "I just went through a divorce and I might need some company sometime. Give me a call." He takes that and says, "Okay." So he walks back in the back room and has somebody else go out and finish up their bill. He goes home that night, pretty sick to his stomach, a lot of emotions and thoughts going through his head. He takes that card that he was given and he throws it in his top dresser drawer and goes into the bathroom and looks at himself in the mirror. I don't know if you've ever done this before, but I have. And he thinks, man, I don't want that to ever happen to me. That would mess me up. He just gave me her number and said, hey, Come on over, we'll have Netflix and chill or whatever. Then he thought, why did you keep the card? So often in life, we keep the card. So often in life, we wonder why bad things are coming into our life. Why temptation's so prevalent, it's because we keep the card. So he goes and he rips up that card, throws it in the trash can. Get rid of the card. Get rid of the temptation. Get rid of the access. When you can, get rid of the pathways that'll give you that access when you're at your weakest moment. Prepare for your weakest moments when you are at your best, because you're not always going to be at your best. So we need to rise away from things. Get distance between certain things that want to mess us up. And then thirdly and finally, we need to rise out. What the last thing that Jesus said to us before he ascended back to the Father was, go ye into all the world and preach the gospel. He gave us a commission. It's called the Great Commission. And he instructs us to rise out. God wants us to rise out every single day. No matter where you're at in life, no matter what you do. I've said this before and I'll say it again. You don't have to be an on-stage multi-million-dollar preacher to spread the gospel. You don't have to even be a preacher to spread the gospel. You can live a life with such an honest reputation, with such joy in your spirit, with such a difference that people look at you and can tell that you are a risen Christian, that you have a risen life. And they're going to wonder what you got, because they want some of that. I hope to live that kind of life every single day. I know that I'm not perfect, and I don't want to claim to be perfect. There may be days where I'm further down than I wish that I was. But we need to ultimately strive to rise up every single day. Whatever is trying to pull us down, whatever might be pulling us down, get up out of that, put some distance between it, and go out and reach a lost world. This is Josh Snyder for Sunday Super Shorts, episode 4. Thank you for joining me. Have a great week, and God bless.